I would go live, and today I want to talk about what to do if you are currently trying to save but for some reason you're just not being able to hit your savings goals, and what I ended up doing instead. So it's a very pretty much quick impromptu live. I'm using my phone, but I really wanted to get this out because I just want to share my savings journey and what you can do if you're almost giving up with saving your money. So let's talk about saving. Now, if you are completely new to like my channel and how I started saving, essentially it took me about 6 months to save my first £1,000 or dollars, depending on where you're from. And I made so many different mistakes. Like, it didn't just naturally happen, especially because I am very much a natural spender. I am someone who used to spend like all of my money. I had never really saved. The only time I really saved for something, it was my first car and my first laptop. But that was pretty much it. And to be honest, when I did save up for those things, I hadn't even saved for things like my insurance or like road coverage or anything like that. So I had been someone who was struggling to save. I'd never saved money before. But one of the things that changed for me was learning that this was a process and being patient. And so for me, although it took me about 6 months to save my first £1,000, after that it became a lot easier, and then it got to a point where I was consistently saving over £1,000 a month rather than it taking me like a whole 6 months. So my initial goal actually was to save my first 500. That was like a big goal for me. I thought, oh my gosh, like I've never saved that much, like as much as 500 before. But it was something that really, just having the patience really helped me to keep going. And then I was able to like snowball my efforts. So let's talk about some of the things that has helped me. And I've actually got my notes here, so I'm gonna have a quick look. And the first thing that I would say is, if you're struggling to reach your savings goals at the moment, one of the things you can do is keep thinking about your North Star goal. So what I mean by this is, when I actually started trying to save like a good amount of money, and for me personally, the reason why I wanted to save that money was because I really wanted to start overpaying on my debt. So I had like my car loan and I had my overdraft, and I was trying to pay that off. But one of the things that I realized is that I needed to learn how to save first. So what I did was, I kept thinking about what my North Star goal was. So yes, my part of my goal was to first save my first 500, and then it was my first 1,000. That was part of my goal, but my North Star goal was to work towards financial independence. Like, that was the really big goal that I had. And if you're not really sure what financial independence is, essentially it just means that you have savings and investments basically paying for your bills, so that you no longer have to work to pay for those bills. So I really wanted to get to a point where I had all of these investments literally paying for my lifestyle, paying for my expenses. So that was like my big North Star goal. But I knew in order for me to get to that point, in order for me to actually become financially independent, part of that meant that I had to learn how to save. And I had to learn how to save so that I could pay off my debt. And then I had to learn to also save up for other things like an emergency fund, and then use those savings to now start investing. So if you're trying to like save money, and you've got these big goals and you've got certain things that you want to pay for, or let's say that like you really want to save up for your first house deposit, and every year it seems like you're just not getting closer to that goal, one of the things that I would say is, have you actually thought about your North Star goal? So yes, having the house deposit would be great, or yes, buying the car, like saving up for your car will be great, or saving up for that holiday would be great. But how can you take that a step further? How can you start to think about what you truly want to achieve? Like, what is something that you want to achieve in the long term, right? And hello for anyone joining me as well. So think about your North Star goal and think about like, what steps do you now need to take? And the reason why I say that is because whenever I thought about giving up on trying to actually save, because let's be real, like saving is not hard, is not it's not easy all the time. Like, it's definitely a skill. And when I first started trying to save, I remember I would save up, like, I wanted to save, I think, like £166 a month. I thought if I at least save that, you know, I'll be getting closer to that 500 goal and then that 1000 goal. But even saving that for me was so difficult because I had all of these other expenses that came up that I had to pay for, and then it meant that I had to use my savings to pay for it. So, you know, I would save £167, you know, at the beginning of the month, but then by the end of the month, I would have to use those savings for something else, and then I was back at square zero. So I could have given up. Like, if you were to tell me that it was going to take me 6 months to save my first, you know, grand, I would have been like, no, like, why would I go through that? But what I realized is that one of the biggest things that helped me and kept me going and kept me, you know, and grounded me and helped me to still be patient was the fact that I still had my North Star goal. It was the fact that I was still working towards something bigger. It wasn't just me like trying to pay off my car loan, like it was something bigger. And I knew that I had to take the initial step. So if you're, you know, you're not happy with where you're currently at, ask yourself, like, do I actually have my North Star goal? And is that helping me to keep going, even if I make mistakes? Even if you keep dipping into your savings, even if something comes up and you have to pay for it, even if like the saving doesn't feel consistent, do you have that North Star goal so that you can keep going no matter what? So that's the first thing that helped me. The second thing I would say that has still helped me, especially when it comes to saving, is actually tracking my progress and seeing how far I've come. And I think so many of us, we forget about how much we've actually accomplished. So, you know, you may feel like, oh, I'm no closer to like my house deposit fund. Like, let's say that you need to save up 20 grand for your house deposit and you currently have 3 grand, for example, like you currently have £3,000 or dollars. For many people, they would be saying that, oh, I'm nowhere near like my goal. And I just think like there's no point in me continuing to save for it because I've only got 3 grand and I need to save like a whole 20 grand. And it's just a lot. Like, there's no point. And so you may end up kind of feeling bad about that. And then you may end up giving up and then decide, you know what, I've decided that, you know, the house deposit can wait a little bit, and instead I'm going to spend the money on something else. Whereas what I did is I actually kept track of my progress. So I use something like called a net worth statement. And what a net worth statement is your assets. So these are things that you own. So things like your savings, your investments, like if you have any cash, for example, those would be your assets, minus your liabilities. And your liabilities are things that you owe. So in my case, I owed an overdraft and my car, I had a car loan, so I'd financed my car. And so for me, my net worth actually started off in the negative. So I was like minus 16,000 as my net worth. Like that's how much debt I had. But one of the things that really helped me was actually seeing where I started. So I did my first ever net worth statement back in October 2018, but I would track every single month to see how far I had come and to see how much I actually still had, to see how much money I still had to like pay off my debt, for example. So for me, tracking that progress helped me to continue saving and overpaying on my debt and helped me to keep going, because I realized that although I started off like, you know, minus 16 grand, which for me wasn't great, but I could see it month after month after month, it started decreasing. And so the fact that I could actually see the progress meant that I just didn't want to give up. Like, it didn't matter how long it was going to take. I knew that I was going to achieve, like, you know, paying off my debt and being able to build on those assets. I knew it was still going to happen because I could see the progress. So again, if you're someone who's maybe struggling to, you know, think about, oh, like my savings goals, like how am I doing? Like, I don't think I'm saving as much. I would love to save more. definitely track your progress. Even if you've only saved 3 grand out of the 20 grand, that is still progress. That is still, you're still further than zero, right? From 0 to 3 grand is still a lot. So make sure like you're tracking your progress and seeing how far you've come, even again, if you make mistakes, and even if the saving isn't consistent. That's okay. Okay, we're not perfect here, right? It took me a long time to actually start saving consistently, but part of that is because I was tracking my progress and I didn't give up, and I had my North Star goal. Okay, and I'm gonna answer questions at the end, but keep the questions coming, guys. So the third thing is, don't be afraid to tweak your goals, guys. I think that when it comes to like us setting goals, so like setting like, oh, I would love to, save up for, I would love to like have this for my house deposit. I would love to be able to save this amount by the end of the year, or I would love to save for this amount for like my holiday or my car or anything else, or my emergency fund. I think sometimes we forget that when we set those goals, we decide the goals. We are the ones who have chosen what to do. Like, we have decided how much we want to save. Okay, so I think we need to be careful, like when we set those goals. You don't need to be upset if, for example, you realize that actually I may not hit that goal. Like, yes, it can, you might feel like, oh, I would have liked to hit that goal, but it doesn't mean that you can't tweak your goal. It doesn't mean that you can't change your goal. And I think that that's something that we forget sometimes. Like, sometimes when I'm working with some of my clients and they're like, oh, I would have loved to save this amount by the end of the year, but I didn't. And then they're really upset. And then I'm like, okay, well, why don't you just tweak the goal and you do it next year? Or you do it a few months after that. Like, why wouldn't you just do that? And they would look at me like, oh, I didn't know I could do that. But you're the one that is in control of the goal. You decide how much you actually want to save, or you decide when you want to save up for that particular thing. And if, for example, you decide, actually, I still want to keep the same goal. So let's say, for example, that you want to save up for your next car, like you want to pay in cash for your car. If, for example, you decide, actually, I would love to save up for by this time next year, so by April 2024, for example, by this time next year, I would like to have saved 10 grand for my car. If you decide that actually you probably don't want to move that goal, like you still want it to be April 2024, well, then that's when you can decide, okay, well, what am I going to do to make sure that it still happens? Like, can I now start to be a bit creative? Maybe you decide to start a side hustle. Maybe you ask for a pay rise at your job, but you can then decide to be creative. But the other thing you can do is you can simply change that goal. You can simply tweak the goal. So you could tell yourself, okay, I did say April 2024, but the amount that I'm saving, and because I'm saving for other things, actually, I may want to change that slightly. So rather than April 2024, let's say that I would love to save for my car by, August 2024 or September. We can tweak it. We have the choice to tweak it. You can choose. Like, we have changed so many of our goals, like, especially since I got married, we have changed our goals like all the time. So the goal is still kind of the same, like the goal is still there, but we tweak it depending on what we want to prioritize, like what we want to focus. Like last year, we decided to prioritize investing a bit more, but then partway through the year, we decided actually we want to just quickly buy a house because we want to think about, starting a family in the future. And so that changed. And so our timelines changed. But I didn't say to myself, oh my gosh, like my timeline has changed. Life is, it's the end now. No, I just said, okay, cool. I will run the numbers, tweak our goal, and then figure out, okay, this is how much we want to be saving each month. And from there, we start saving. And that's it. I think sometimes we forget that we have a bit more control with some of our savings goals, and you don't always have to have a concrete goal and a concrete time. Like you are allowed to tweak it, you are allowed to change it, because it's you who decides on that goal. It's you who decides how much you need to save, and it's you who decides the timeline, so when you actually need to save for it. So that's the other thing. And then the bonus thing that I do want to talk about is, I think sometimes when it comes to like our savings goals and us maybe not being as, you know, we're not very happy with the fact that we haven't reached certain savings goals. I think one of the things that hinders this, and the reason why we keep having that mindset, is because of comparison. And I've done a whole video on comparison, but I think that comparison is probably one of the biggest things that is actually stopping us from saving more, because we are so worried about our savings goals and hitting our savings goals because we want to get to a certain point at a particular time. And the reason being is because we are comparing ourselves to others. Like I had a client call earlier this week, and she was saying how she felt really behind, and she's in her early 20s. And I was really surprised, because she said that all her friends were at the point where they had all these savings, and, you know, like a lot of them had bought their first house already, and they already were starting to invest, and they were doing all these things. And she felt like she was behind because she hadn't got to that point yet. She was literally just starting on her journey. And I said, if you keep thinking that you're supposed to be at this point because your friends are at this point, it's going to stop you from actually saving more. Because what you'll be doing is, rather than focusing on your own journey, rather than focusing on you and what you want to do, you're going to be focusing on your friends and what they're doing instead. And I always say, you have no idea how some of your friends got to that point. You have no idea. Like, I have no idea what my friends' finances are like. I have no idea how they may have got to that point. But that's their journey. That's not mine. And if you keep thinking about their own journey, it's going to stop you from thinking about yours. And then it's going to stop you from thinking about, actually, how can I save more? What else should I be saving for? What else do I need to be working towards? What do I need to be thinking about? It's going to stop you from doing that, because you're going to be thinking about everyone else. And then you're still not going to reach your savings goals because you're thinking about everyone else. So we really need to be careful when we're trying to compare ourselves to other people, okay? Really think about your own goals. And that's why they always say that personal finance is personal, because it's personal to you. We all have different goals. We are all on different journeys, okay? I even said to her, for example, she's not in a rush to buy her house at the moment because she's in her early 20s. I said, well, then why would you be worried about you buying a house when you're in your early 20s, and what you're going to be thinking about is something completely different to someone who is maybe in their late 20s or their early 30s, who is married, starting a family, and then thinking about buying a house. They're two different scenarios. So you have to really think about, like, where are you currently at? Really focus on your journey. Really focus on what is important to you. Because I always say as well, for example, if we use the house example, when you're trying to save for a house deposit, not everyone is going to be at the point where they're trying to really like save up for a house very quickly. Like, if I use myself as an example, we weren't in a rush to buy our house, because when we got married, we were like in our mid-20s, and we were like, actually, we would love to have a bit of freedom for a bit, right? The only time we now started to think about saving up for a house deposit is when our particular life goals changed. And when they changed, that's when we said, okay, now we're really going to start focusing on saving for that. But before, we weren't, because we were on a different journey. But someone else may have said, actually, they would love to buy their first house, so they may decide that they want to focus on their house deposit really quickly. So you have to really ask yourself, what journey are you on? Because some of us, we're thinking about our friends' journeys, and we're trying to focus our finances on their journeys and what their destination is. And it is not the destination that you need to be on. It may not even be the destination that God has given you. Okay? So this is what I'm saying when it comes to you thinking about, okay, I'm not reaching my savings goals. Comparison, it's not good, guys. It's not good. And it's hard, by the way. It's very hard. Like, I'm not perfect. Like, sometimes I will see people and I'd be like, oh, actually, I wish I was at that point. But at the end of the day, like, we have our own journeys, and we really need to focus on that. And you have no idea, what everyone else is doing. You have no idea what people are doing to even get to that point. So really try to focus on your journey. If you're a person of faith, really talk to God about that. Focus on your journey, not anyone else's. So again, if you're struggling to reach your savings goals, that is something that you need to be thinking about. So again, focus on your North Star goal. What are you, not only just obviously thinking about your emergency fund, your house deposit, all of that good stuff, your car, your holiday, great. But think about your North Star goal, because that's going to keep you motivated to keep saving, even if you make mistakes. And there may be mistakes. I made many mistakes. But the North Star goal is what helped me to keep going no matter what. And then the second thing I mentioned was keep track of your progress and be happy with that progress as well. Like, you can of course improve on it. You can decide, actually, I could have done this better, I could have done that better, but still be like, have a look at your progress and see how far you've come, because that's also going to help you. And then the third thing I mentioned was, don't be afraid to tweak your timelines, okay? Do not be afraid to tweak your timelines. And last of all, let's stop comparing ourselves to everyone, okay? It's not great. It's not great. It's not helpful. It's not helpful for us. So I really hope like that will help you, especially if you're trying to reach those savings goals, but you're not just happy with your progress. Hopefully those points have been helpful. So I'm gonna answer some questions because I saw a couple of points, but if you do want like further support as well, that's something that I cover in one-on-one coaching. So if you're someone looking to really save a lot more money, but you need like additional support, you maybe want my support, definitely book a free call just to find out more about working with me. So link will be in the description below. But let me answer some questions. I hope I can see them. So someone asked a question, what are your views on memberships like Tesco and Sainsbury's to take advantage of rewards and discounts? Yeah, I mean, to be honest, like, I think there's no harm in it. So I have like a Tesco club card. We don't go to Tesco all that often. We mainly shop at Aldi, but we do shop at Tesco when Aldi is a bit annoying and doesn't have like some of the stuff. So I'm a fan of them. I have a Nectar card, I think, as well, but I don't really shop at Sainsbury's. But they can be useful. They definitely can be useful. Yep, so someone said they can be helpful with some discounted tailored on what you buy. Yep, and you can save some more money. Yeah, so sometimes like when I go to Tesco, there are certain things where I know that we'll probably get deals because we have a club card, which is great. Like my popcorn. I love to buy popcorn from Tesco because there's always deals there. Can an emergency fund be your goal? Oh, 100%, 100%. Emergency fund was my goal after I paid off my debt. So as soon as I paid off my debt, I knew that my next goal was to have an emergency fund. So yeah, you can decide how much your emergency fund is going to be. Like, you know, is it going to be 3 months worth of expenses, 6 months, even a year? And yeah, that could be one of your goals. I would recommend like having an emergency fund as a goal if you don't have one. I haven't got a proper North Star goal. It's just an emergency fund and investing. Yeah, so my question would be, what are you investing for? Because that's also something that people tend to miss. It's like, okay, I want to start investing, but what am I actually investing for? What is the reason? Why am I going to keep investing my money? Like, what's the point in me, like, for example, when I paid off my debt and I had my emergency fund, what would be the point in me investing my money? Why do I actually want to invest my money? That is where your North Star goal is going to help, because investing, ideally, is something that's going to be long-term. So when you're investing, you'll be thinking about the long term. So what is it that you're going to be investing for? That's something that I would be thinking about. And your North Star goal will link that to it as well. Sometimes I feel like by not going out, I'm missing out with my friends and dates, but then London is so expensive. Yeah, I mean, I live in London. London is no joke. But I think one of the things that I found is, as long as you plan for it and you prioritize your savings already, I still tend to go out. Like, I don't go out very often during the winter. So what I would tend to do is I will use that money to then bring forward and think about how I'm going to spend my money in summer. Because I'm one of those people where like I love to be at home during the winter, but in summer I'm probably out every weekend. So all I do is I literally just plan for it, and I figure out, okay, like when do I want to go out, how much am I likely going to spend, and then I literally just plan accordingly for it. But I think sometimes we think that saving means not spending. And this is going to be another that'll be another live. I may start to do these lives a bit like these, like phone lives, a bit more often, because I have so much to say. But saving does not mean the same thing as not spending. When you learn how to save properly, all you're doing is you are building the skill of being able to keep some of your money, but you can still spend it. And some of the mistakes that people tend to make is they think that if they just learn to save money and not spend, they know how to save. And that's something that you have to be really careful of, because even during the pandemic, many of us were not spending, and we thought that we knew how to save because we weren't spending, because we were, you know, at home during lockdown. But then when things started opening up, we then ended up spending all that money again, and then we struggled to save. And some of us even ended up using the savings that we'd saved at lockdown to spend, and then we were back at square zero. And the reason being is because we did not learn how to actually save. All we learned is how to not spend money, and they're two different things. But again, I'll do another live on that, because I have so much to say on that topic. Yep, someone says, yeah, pension, Vanguard, I'm not really in debt apart from a little student loan. Yeah, so I would even like go further and say like, okay, if you're investing for your pension, like why? Why is that important? Because really you could rely just on the government, right? We've got a state pension. I'm sure in other countries they have state pensions as well. So really ask yourself, like, why am I actually, why do I need that pension? And if I'm doing that for the pension, do I maybe want to retire early? Maybe instead of 65, maybe I want to retire at 60 or 50 or 40. Will that then impact how much I now start investing? So can you see how it gets a bit more elevated? Because many people will tell you, oh yeah, save for your pension, save for your retirement. But I'm like, as a natural spender, you just telling me to save for my retirement is not going to be that helpful, unfortunately, because I will just say, oh, well, there's government pension, and then decide to spend the money instead. So you have to get really clear on like, what does that North Star mean for you personally? What does that pension mean for you personally? And then that will help you to now decide, okay, this is why I'm investing, this is how much I'm investing, and this is why I'm investing this much. And that will continue to keep you motivated. Yep, London's insanely expensive. I'm in London too. I follow your advice on planning and budgeting. It has to be done in this awful economic climate. Yeah, exactly. Like, I think just having that system to really help you just plan your spending can be very helpful, especially if you live in expensive cities like London. Like, I mean, it's London, and yeah, it's London. That's all I'll say. But you know, it's still a great city. I still love it. So yeah, it's all about being a bit creative. I would love the topic of saving and not spending. Would love to hear more. Yes, so I will try to go live. I think I'm going to do these a bit more often, like as well as my Sunday lives, because I do Sunday lives like once a month, but that will be on my laptop. But I might do like, you know, phone lives after work sometime. But I'm gonna leave it there. Thank you guys so much for joining. If you do have any questions, let me know in the chat. If you would like me to do any more lives on like certain topics, do let me know. But I hope this was useful. I will definitely try to get a video out for Tuesday. Unfortunately, last week I was a bit sick, so apologies for that, but I will try to get a video out. But thank you guys so much for watching, and we will speak soon. See you later. Bye.